now. So
we are live.
Brilliant, brilliant. So very, very, very blessed morning to all of our Facebook family watching, men and women. I'm not sure if some of you are waking up and done a productive day already. So if you're not already aware, we basically literally came off our private Zoom chat with men all around the world. This week's topic was quite apt, actually, and it's something that I think we've all experienced of in some way, shape, or form. And the topic was about letting go. And then we're super, super, super excited to have a special guest speaker, which we'll introduce. We'll introduce very shortly. And then we'll get right into it. And we'll, in our usual fashion, we'll unpack some of the conversations because they were really, really deep and profound, as they always are with the men. We won't obviously mention any men's names in terms of personal detail just to protect their privacy, but we actually have got their permission to reveal what some of the topics and conversations were that we actually literally discussed. So yeah, Viraj, is there anything else you want to say before we kick off and introduce Laura?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, hello to everyone that's joining us live right now. I think we're still kind of coming down from what was a pretty electric meeting that we just had. As always, goes in some very deep rabbit holes, but coming out of it, and there's a lot of realization and stuff as well. But no, I'm really excited for us to dissect this topic a little bit more, and obviously get Laura's perspective on here as well. I'm super excited. Can't wait for us to, again, deep dive.
Definitely. So I think, why don't we do some introductions? Laura, why don't you introduce yourself and I guess how you came about on this Facebook Live, how we met, and then just a bit about your background. You can go into it a lot deeper, I guess, later on when we unpack the conversation about what letting go means to you. But it'd be nice for our audience just to hear about a little bit about how, I guess, what brought you here, really.
Absolutely. So hi, everybody. Lovely to meet you all. Sounds like you've had a very interesting morning. And my name is Laura Simpson. I'm 36 and I am a wellbeing, positive life and meditation coach. And I got into the world of wellbeing 7 years ago. I worked very much in the corporate field in technology. I was a sales manager, coach and leader. I was in that field for 16 years. And 7 years ago, my life changed completely. Having been healthy majority of my life, I suddenly was struck down with toxic shock syndrome, and I had 5 horrific autoimmune conditions as part of this. So I was bedbound, hospitalized, fed full of medication, and reached a really, really dark place because I was told I could never heal. Went through a horrific 2 years until I got to a really low point and thought, I'm going to turn this around. I am going to heal myself of something that was meant to be unhealable, and I'm going to heal others. And that's exactly what I've done. Many different things as part of that. But one of the biggest things for me was the mind and the body connection, which took me about a year to actually realize, and how trapped emotions that we all go through in our life, however relevant that is to each one of us. We often think, oh, somebody else has had major trauma and I haven't had that, so it's not as big as that. Actually, what was relevant to me was a ton of emotions I didn't even realize I'd experienced through my 30 plus years. And that I'd never really let go of things, and how them being trapped in the body was also affected my health, not just my health, but my whole entire life. So I went on this huge 5-year journey, and it not only helped my health, but transformed my whole life by really looking at the mind and how complex we are as humans, but how the mind is key to health in all aspects. So that's a little introduction to me. I reached out to you about a month ago, I think it was, and we had a conversation. I was really interested in Mindful Men's Club. I'm interested, I work with businesses, organizations, individuals across the UK, Barbados and America. And one of the big things for me is kind of shifting the mindset. When I first started this work, I was working a lot with females and getting males to talk more and more. And I've noticed a big shift in that from working with businesses and organizations over the last year particularly. And when I reached out to you, that's why I was reaching out. I really loved what Mindful Men's Club was all about, having an open and free space to chat and to just discuss topics such as letting go freely and authentically. So that's a short introduction to me, which I'm sure we'll go into further detail.
Brilliant, brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that, Laura. And I think that was really a great, insightful introduction, and it gives our audiences a glimpse into some of the journey that you've been through, are going through, and will go through, right? Because it never stops. It never stops.
Exactly.
I think Viraj, I think we can dive deep into I guess literally what I mean. I don't know about you. You're probably still processing like me, but there's a lot of content that was shared, right? So we started at 11 a.m. as we normally do, and then we were talking for an hour and a half with men from all around the world, all from diverse different backgrounds, different stories, different lived experiences. And I think if we just put that question out to our Facebook audience, I think Viraj, that would be quite apt. So what does letting go to you mean? What does it actually mean? Is it letting go of an emotion? Is it letting go of a relationship? Is it letting go of self-talk? What is it like? What does it actually mean? So I'll just read out some of the actual personal comments. So I literally asked at the end of the conversation to all the men who joined this morning, what's the single biggest thing in your life that you've let go of, right? So I'll just read this out, and then we can probably go super deep into any one of these topics or conversations and wherever the conversation takes us. So one was anger, okay. One was their past self. One was someone's wife who's no longer in that relationship. One was assumptions that my presence does not matter to the world. Okay, interesting. One was people's expectations. Another was getting people's validation. Okay, and friends who no longer serve. That I guess apply to family and friends. And then I can't read my own handwriting, which is always a fun and games. Oh yeah, letting go of limiting boundaries. So that's more around mindset in terms of limiting belief. And then being a victim of life. So there's some really interesting, diverse, and obviously every single one of those topics has a huge story behind it to that individual who shared that and has gone through a lived experience. And I think for me, just to kick the conversation off, I guess the three biggest things that I've learned to let go of, I guess in no apparent order, was self-ego. Second was anger. And third was relationships that no longer serve me, but also no longer serve that individual. I think that's also important as well, because
I think there's another one. It's just letting go of pain. Like, why carry it?
Yeah, there was actually, and letting go of pain, right? Because and that's a big one, I think, and that's a big one, and I think as men, especially, it's really, really hard to, I guess, talk about these things. But Laura, just to give you an immense, quick, rapid insight, some of the stuff that people share in our men's group, literally, quote unquote, like one person said today, they've never shared with anyone in their life before, not even their parents, not even their family. So
release, that's healing in itself.
Yeah,
exactly. It's so powerful. It's just, we go super deep, super quick. We have, as lads do, we have humor at the end, a little bit of light humor at the end. But literally from 11 a.m. to I think about an hour, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, it gets very serious, very respectful, very present in the moment, and sometimes emotional. And it's just liberating that men can share what they share in a really free way. I think that for us, to me and Viraj and Havan and Saga, the guys behind Men's Club, I think that puts a real smile on our face. So I think it's quite profound, and I think Viraj, stop me if there's any questions, but I think it'd be nice to unpack any one of those that I've just read out. I think you called out pain, right, Viraj?
yeah.
Was there a reason why you called that one out, or was it just because I missed it out, or is it something related to?
I think it's more along the lines of like when we kind of first started the conversation, we started talking about what does letting go mean for everyone, and there was a general awareness of we all need to let go of stuff, like of course, and then the question I posed was, what is it that you're holding on to? And then the whole room just kind of went silent, because like in order for you to let go of something, you've got to realize what it is that you're holding on to, and that's where it's past failures, or like people. One of the guys shared that they had a breakup with their partner, and then now the relationship's really amicable, they get along really well, but yet he's still holding on to the way they broke up. And it's like, well, why? Because you're here and things are good. So the need to be right about something sometimes has us hold on to an opinion or a belief just to continue to validate that. And even when we look at that and say, well, how is that really serving us? And even though it does cause us pain and all that kind of stuff, it's just our reaction to a situation and not seeing that there's multiple perspectives on a truth. It just so happens that in the moment we create a convenient truth, and that becomes, it gets us through the situation, but then we end up carrying it. It becomes burdensome. It manifests as energy in the body. It becomes heavy and it shows up in other ways. So it's noticing that you're holding on to a certain type of pain, and where does that come from, and being able to choose to then let go of some of that as well.
I think, sorry to interrupt, but just my answer to the whole kind of letting go. So I've just been thinking of this as we've kind of spoken of what would my response be to that? And I think because it covers such an array of topics, letting go is any negative thought in the mind for me, any negative emotion, any negative thought that we all have. And we spoke a lot about, for me, these subconscious behaviors that you've kind of touched on there that come because of experiences we take in life and we never address them. So it's subconscious behaviors that are negative, that are on a constant loophole in the mind because we've never unblocked them or released them like you're doing. So letting go for me is pain, is all these different subjects that have come up, but even things that we don't realize that have built those subconscious behaviors. Everybody always mentions childhood, but there is an element of childhood that happens, relationships that we go through, and these subconscious taught behaviors. Identifying even where that begins is a huge thing for me, because we don't always realize. So that relationship that might have been bad, what did I bring that was fairly toxic to that relationship? What did they bring? And where did that start?
Yeah.
That identification. So I think letting go for me covers such a huge topic, but it's any negative thought pattern that we've all taught ourselves, and it's all habitual behavior, rather than truth, as you mentioned there.
Yeah, and it starts by just getting the awareness of it and just an acceptance of it, because once you accept it, you assume control over it as well. And that's where choices, tools, techniques now become apparent of like, now there is something that we can do because it's now there at that conscious level as well.
Absolutely. And for me, it was that when a negative thing that happened to me was an illness, but what is it trying to teach me? Yeah. So I still stand by this, that everything that happens in life, those negative thoughts are trying to teach us something. So as opposed to, why is this happening to me? This is awful. This feeling is horrific. Shifting just that mindset to, what is this trying to teach me? And what can I take from this?
Absolutely.
For me, it's huge.
And we've got some comments coming in the chat here from Soldier. For me, it would be letting go of the constructs of the past and the future. Deep is saying, first step is cutting toxic people. I believe we all have stories, just don't think that men are good at expressing how we feel. We think it's a sign of weakness. So there's definitely elements of that at play as well. And guys, thank you for sharing, and keep your comments and questions coming as well. So yeah, I feel like we've really set the scene in terms of why we're having this conversation, and maybe some of the context behind it as well. And Laura, now I'd like to invite you to take us a little bit deeper on this.
Absolutely. So I think for me, one of the things I first did, and I do meditation, it was a big thing for me. And I think when people hear of meditation, you think breath work. I was ignorant to it initially and thought very much about breath work. It's just sitting in a funny position and all this different stuff. And when I started meditating, I did it based on, I'm sure you've probably had discussions about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system before. So I did it from that basis of knowing that the SNS, when it's dominant, is releasing tons of bad bacteria in my body, inflammation, and I don't want to be living in that. And while that's a historic thing, the SNS, and it should only be there about 5-10% of our lifetimes, what's happened is we're all living in it 70-80% of the time, because what we now perceive as danger isn't real danger as we would have classed before. It's things like social media and comparing ourselves to other people. It's things like relationships that happen, relationship breakups, things that happen in our professional world, personal world. And when that SNS is dominant and not addressed, this is for me where we go in this cycle of repeat, this habitual behavior. And when I first started identifying with the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, this is when I realized it's actually, I think, first and foremost, any emotion that you have that is negative, to say, I understand why I feel this and there's nothing wrong with feeling it, is one of the biggest things, first of all, because we're in fight mode straight away. Why do I feel this way? I should be able to let go of that. I should be able to do this. Why should you? We should feel the emotion. We should address it. Again, I go back to what is this trying to teach me? So that for me, and just understanding the SNS releasing these chemicals, these endorphins, these different things in the mind and being on repeat, was really releasing to understand we're just human. Even if you look at the conversation you've had this morning and people commenting on chat right now, that's a release in itself, because you realize, oh, other people have these thoughts. Oh, other people think this way. Absolutely. So yeah, that was first for me, was just identifying that. So I did it on that level, but then getting deeper. One of the first things that came up to me, just to give you an example of letting go, when I first started energy work and energy healing, and I worked with a healer, a natural healer. And when we started to do the emotional work, one of the first things that came up to me was my very first boyfriend from when I was like 16. And I was thinking, why has that come up? It was a real kind of, whoa, where has that come from? Because I'm over him, right? But actually, it was nothing to do with him. What it was to do with, and this is why I always talk about emotion and a word of emotion when we talk about letting go, because it's the core of it is what's the emotion I felt. And it was rejection. And then that entered a whole huge area for me, because I thought about, I was in a sales job for 16 years. I was in a senior management role for 10 years. Rejection was constant. But where had it stemmed to? Where was the first piece of rejection? Was that very first boyfriend. And that's what I needed to heal from. So just that example of going deeper into the body of what was trapped because my SNS was dominant and living in this constantly. Then when you think about rejection, it led me then to the opposite of it, acceptance. And this cycle that starts going, all these different emotions and how they interlink. No wonder my SNS is dominant. No wonder I felt these emotions I haven't realized. And then I identified that a lot of letting go, we as humans care a lot about what other people think about us. We fundamentally do, whether we like it or not. It's part of human nature. So fear then came a big thing. Actually, I'm worried. I was thinking about this the other day. When you sometimes have a breakup or you lose a job, one of the very first things people say is not about yourself. What will other people think? Don't we? And it's I've done it recently myself, even after all this work. What will other people think? Oh, I'm a bit embarrassed about that, because we are so aware of other people. So I'm aware I'm teetering off a little bit here, but actually for me, it all interlinks, because it's all interlinked to one. When we think about letting go, is what other people think? What do we think of ourselves? But it's just this cycle of constant repeat that we've never addressed the emotion first and foremost. And I think release is a big thing. So even you talking about it. And when you say that men don't always like to talk, there's so many other ways that you can do this release, right? Journaling, writing, exercises, tips and techniques for those who are uncomfortable to talk about it. And when you start implementing that, for me, is when the magic kind of happens of these, this that happened when I was 16. I thought this was so far from what I'm dealing with in my 30s, but actually no, because the emotion is interlinked as well.
Yeah. And this is the thing, like I liken that, it's like the energy of that is kind of like a hot potato that you have to get rid of. Otherwise, the longer you hold on to it, the more you're going to burn yourself anyway. But it's not realizing they were holding on to it initially.
I think
very deep.
Yeah, I think that was a great share, Laura. I think there's so much. I think the picture that comes to mind is that classic of the iceberg, right? So there's an iceberg. You can see it. You think its entirety, but actually if you look beneath the surface, that's what actually resembles the subconscious, and that's where all of the deeper inner work happens, because it's quite easy to call out something on the surface, right? It could be human behavior, but like you mentioned, Laura, nicely, that why did your when you were 16 years old, right, boyfriend come to mind? It was the exact same reason why one of the guys who mentioned what he mentioned and his relationship with his girlfriend was, whether he realized it or not, but he did in the conversation in the moment, was resemblant to the relationship that his parents had, right? And it was a mirror effect. And it's recognizing these mirrors, and the mirrors and the signals are all there. But unless you're going through something like a meditative process, and by the way, I'm with you, meditation is something subjective and personal to you. There is no right or wrong way to meditate, unless you're that's probably a topic in its own right. But if you can meditate and be present within the moment with all of your entire energy, and then start to get that clarity of why you're feeling the way you're feeling, and why you're having an awareness of what it is that's making you feel this way and this emotion. I think that's the first level of acceptance and awareness, right, Laura?
Absolutely. And accepting it to yourself, yeah, that I feel this way, that it's not abnormal. And I think that, that's a whole other conversation around language that we use to ourselves. I work with people who will tell me, oh God, this is crazy. And the first thing I'll say, stop calling yourself crazy. Stop calling yourself these negative emotions that is also feeding that S&S just daily and what you feel. It's huge.
Definitely. I think narrative has got a lot to do with it. I think one of the big things that came out on the talk was that do not underestimate the power of conversation. And a few of the guys were saying, and including myself, previous version of myself, like it would take me 6 filters of conversation to pluck up the courage to then analyze, process, is that person that I'm reaching out to going to help me? Can he or she help me? And then what would they think of me if I share what I'm sharing with them, right?
What will they think of me again? Yeah.
Because I mean, it's just one of those things that it's a part of human psyche. I think whether we like it or not, like you said, that we all do value what other people think. But I think when you become really truly self-aware, OPO, what I like to refer to, matters not. So other people's opinion absolutely matters not. And I think one guy, I won't repeat what he said because he's well, I'm not about to swear on Facebook Live, but he actually said I couldn't give a flying, what other people think. And then the beautiful thing about that is what he meant is that he used to, and it was draining, and now it's the most liberating feeling ever, because the references that he's making are for people who no longer vibrate on our energy frequency and vibration. And it's not that we're higher, they're lower, it's nothing like that. It's like I like to use a metaphor as a radio station. It's like you like magic, I like history, whatever. It doesn't mean you're bad or good, it just means we vibe on a different frequency. That's it, right? And if you try to fit in society, in friend circles, and in things, the pressure that puts on you, it's just so profound.
Where I find that really fascinating as well, sorry to interrupt, but where I find that fascinating is in relationships. So I recently have gone through quite a bad relationship with somebody, and I'm very open and frank, as you know, so I'll be honest and open when I talk about my circumstances. And this was my kind of next level of, okay, what was this trying to teach me? Somebody who I'd known for 16 years of my life, we were together 3 years, but he's a very different person to what I realized, and it ended quite badly. And he had some very toxic traits. I kind of hate to use the word toxic, but in reality he did. And I stayed in it trying to kind of fix and heal somebody and all of that kind of stuff. And what I had to let go of was many different things. Kind of when that ended and he suddenly rushed into a relationship with somebody else, I think he cheated, all these kind of different things. He's going through his own journey. So the essence of forgiveness was what the very first thing I had to do to let go. Forgiving somebody for self, which isn't a selfish act initially, but understanding when we talk about different people and different emotions and what they do, just as you said there in Friends, our energy frequencies are all different. There's a reason he's acting the way he's acted. I'm sure I did some things that were not ideal either. But that was a huge experience for me in letting go when we talk about relationships, that because somebody behaves a certain way, it not necessarily is an attack on you. Doesn't mean that you have done something wrong. It doesn't mean, again, why me or any of that. You can always address your own things and look to say, what could I have done better in the situation as well? But when somebody has done something negative to us or something bad in a relationship, to not take that forward to your next relationships is huge. But it is this understanding that it's not a personal attack. And that person has got their own healing to do, and to wish them well and forgiveness. And forgiveness is a hard thing. People struggle with it. But because we've not done the right tools, techniques, to do that day in and realize how liberating it is for you, and that piece of your life has just ended, but what lessons can you take from it? So that, I think, I just wanted to jump in there when you were talking about friends or different people that we think in life, because we think the same as a relationship. We are all different, we are unique for a reason, and to not take those things personally. Equally, if you've done the bad thing in a relationship to somebody else, and you are fed with guilt and all these different feelings, understanding and just doing better next time, it is really key for me as well. But I think we take things very personally in any aspect of life be it relationships or different people, where really that was a massive healing thing for me in letting go, was recognizing that we're all on our own journeys and everybody is different and unique. And just like I've had experiences in life, so have those people somewhere along the way, and realizing it's not personally at you, it's their own journey, and that's their own SNS or their own release system or their own defense mechanism, but not personally at you, is one of the biggest liberation things I think anybody can do.
And I think the thing that we don't realize about forgiveness is that actually forgiveness is for ourselves first, to just awareness, acceptance, and to give it up, like let it go. And it's not to say you're letting someone else off the hook, but again, it's that, why are we carrying the burden of something that someone may have done to us voluntarily or involuntarily, but why are we choosing to continue to recreate being in that state and reacting? And as you say, we're activating our own SNS by just constantly looking in that direction. So part of it is choosing to want to not just let it go, but give up the right to continue to be righteous about it, and just kind of like, okay, cool, they just did what they did, and I'm gonna do exactly. I can continue to go.
And it's an element of ego that as well, right? Because you're thinking, why did they do this to me? What's wrong with me? It goes back to that self-doubt, as opposed to it being wrong with them and something they might have done, or you just weren't right in terms of the situation. So you overanalyze, and then you come into this deep, it's me, it must have been me, I must have done this, and all of that kind of vicious stuff.
Something that I want to unpack that touched on in a couple of different ways, but in one subtle way and in a one kind of more direct way, Laura, is that I think it's quite powerful to unpack, is that we have no idea what the other person is going through in the moment that we're experiencing the why me syndrome, right? So and by that I mean, let's say the why me is based on an input, a statement, or a relationship. I mean, in your case, it was, you mentioned the reference of a relationship, but when we meet people in everyday life, and I was really thinking about this quite deeply the other day, and I read this quote, I'm probably not doing it justice, but it was something along the fact that when you meet someone, whatever your experience or judgment of that person is, him or her, is just a chapter. So don't assume that that's the entire story, right? So that was quite powerful, and it's like it's such a profound statement, but simple. But when we meet everyone, like the way we met, for example, right? If you met me, I promise you, 6 years ago, we wouldn't have vibed, right? I was a very different person, and you probably were, a very, very different person as well. So the beauty of the universe and the synchronicity of how we met, why we met, aligned core values or perceived core values, and then just people trying to give something back to others. I think that there's plenty of that around, right? And there's plenty of that, but I think you have to have a conversation first. And I think the biggest reluctance on a couple of the guys in the talk before is that, but shall I have that conversation? Yeah, but why should I have that conversation? Or can I have that? Or what would they think? And unless you have that conversation with yourself, nobody in the world can help you, right? Let's just be honest with you. You have to first have a reality check, look yourself in the mirror and think, you know what? I don't know why I'm feeling this way, but at least I'm asking the right questions. At least I've got that thirst of curiosity and finding out why, and then do that deep inner work and then go through the layers and the subconscious, etc., and the conscious. And I think the more you unpack it, and you mentioned earlier on journaling. I mean, I do tons of journaling. I'm sure you guys do as well. But there's many, many, many tools. I would love to know, I guess, from each of you, Viraj and Laura, what would be your top three, or not even top three, because that puts a priority on it, but 3 tools that have served you in your life. And they could be anything, tools, techniques, whatever you want to share.
So I would just share from a journaling perspective, actually 3 things that I would journal. One that I think that can be very releasing when we look at relationships, whatever that may be, a relationship with a parent, a relationship with a family member, a romantic relationship, or a relationship with a friend. When we journal, I find writing a letter to somebody that you never send can be one of the most therapeutic things in the world. You might send it, you might not. And really have to find your own journey with that, if it's right for you or not. So I think writing a letter like that for me And to this potentially chap I did mention, I did send him the letter. There was about 11 letters I wrote, because the first one was a lot of getting my F's and my swear words out. But I needed to, right? I'm not, perfect, and I don't, I swore. And so by the time I had written like the 11th letter, I was quite healed, because I'd released a lot and I said what I needed to say. And it was in the right context of me getting rid of my own anger to then being able to speak openly and frankly. So that's one thing I say. Secondly, when we talk about kind of positive language and what you write, the emotions I feel, and just writing, these are the emotions I feel about this situation, and just writing the emotions, just one words of emotions, you can be writing those for days. Shifting it round to, I allow myself to feel these emotions, are another thing you can write, because that's the acceptance level. I allow that I feel, I understand why I feel XXX. I am transforming these emotions by doing this. Or you can equally put, the opposite of those emotions is this, are these things, are these words. And then you start to experience, oh, okay, and I do have that in my life in different areas. And then just lastly, writing the positives. While I haven't let go of this just yet, I wouldn't say I haven't let go, while I'm working on letting go of these areas, these are the positives I do have in my life. All these things sound really simple, but actually we don't stop and reflect and do that enough. So these are the positive emotions I do have in my life right now. These are the positive feelings I do feel. So just from a journaling perspective.
Yeah, I think that's a great share. And I think you touched on it right at the end, that before you even get to that stage, you have to actually do hit pause on your life and take time to introspect and reflect. And then when you do that, that's the contents of the journaling, the activity. And I love journaling. So yeah, great. I'd love to know in the comments if anybody does do journaling and what their experiences of journaling were. Please comment any questions you have on that, what just Laura just shared. Biraj?
Or even just talking. So sorry, just talking, either than just journaling. Just talking these things sometimes to yourself, or in your head, just, if journaling's not for you, there's those elements as well.
Exactly. So having a conversation, whether it's audible, whether it's visual, or whether it's self conversation. Okay. Biraj, what about you?
I think the first thing for me is community, like surrounding yourself or identifying who is it that you can have these types of conversations with. I mean, for example, Manoj, like the way we met through the Genius community, it was kind of like we need to, identifying and making a conscious decision in terms of, not to say that the people around you aren't any, there's nothing wrong with them, but sometimes you just need something different. And I think, as I say, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So just do a little bit of an audit and say, okay, if there's something different I need, how can I get that? So I think community is a big thing. I think introspection and finding gratitude for challenges and what you've learned from those challenges, because yes, there's always a sting when you experience something go wrong, but actually what have you learned from that experience that you have taken forward and you just haven't reminded yourself? So there are instances where there are certain jobs that didn't go well, or certain experiences I had where like the role was really good, but I was having a hard time with a particular manager. And I look back at that and said, that's really helped me in terms of where I am right now, because I learned something in this scenario. I've learned something in that scenario. And looking back on it, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be in the position that I'm in right now. So it's been able to find a bit of balance in that perspective as well. And I think the other thing is, and I know this may sound oversimple, but try to live in the present, because what's happened has happened and what hasn't happened yet. And right here, right now, what you can do is what's going to influence what happens next. So it goes back to, what are the vibes that I'm putting out now? Because what I'm putting out now is going to determine what happens next. And there's a quote that Manoj and I really like, is that life is a dance between destiny and free will. What's happened has happened, but what happens next is your choice. So it's been reminding ourselves that we have the ultimate say in how it goes, or we have the ability to work around the situation.
Awesome. Thank you. There's a lot that you shared there, and thanks for sharing that. And I think I was just reflecting while you were sharing it. I think one of them is really aligned with what my I guess 3 and association. So Laura, I'm not sure if you come across this word, but so the word Sangha, translated in Sanskrit, means association, and it's the core of everything in terms of spiritual practice, right? It's like what I just said, you're the sum of the 5 or 6, the classic saying of 6 degrees of separation, right? So you're some of the 5 people that you surround yourself with, and the energy that they exude, right? And the vibration and the frequency. I think so. That would be one for me. I think a big one for me, you already know this, but I've shared this multiple times in the private chat and on Facebook Live, is daily meditation. But what I've made it my own daily meditation. So for me, it's having my 7 conversations with the universe, right? So each 7 areas that are really, really important to me. And my last one would be what you touched on as well, is gratitude. I literally wake up, somebody asked me on Facebook, what do you do first thing when you wake up? And I said, I used to check my phone, WhatsApp and Facebook notifications. I'm quite pleased and liberated that that is definitely not the first thing I do now. And the first thing I do is literally thank the universe for waking up to dawn of a beautiful day and taking in a breath. And I literally take in a breath of endless possibilities, right? So it's having gratitude and being present in the moment. And I think service, linking it with service to others, I think it's a humbling feeling when you're serving others. But yeah, it's just fascinating to see what everyone's is, right?
So many different techniques and so many different things out there around it. Absolutely. Fascinating subject.
And that's the thing, Laura, that one of the guys was asking, what works for you? And it's like, but what works for me or you might not be what works for you. You have to go through that journey and explore it. And it doesn't mean if it's written about, or if there's a best-selling author or there's a TEDx talk, it matters not. Like, you have to go that personal journey and experience, like you did, like I've gone, like Viraj has gone through, and kind of feel your own way, right, around what is it, and that's why they called it a lived experience, because you have to live through that experience. It's just fascinating that there's an abundance of techniques, tools out there, but yet we don't slow down in our life to actually realize, what do we want to change, if we want to change. Again, that's a choice, right? That's a choice.
I think it's always fascinating, that if, and I think for me, because and sometimes you do go, when you look at anything, you kind of go through transformation, something has happened in your life to kind of put you there, something quite fundamental, I think, puts you in that place. But for me, it's kind of recognizing that everybody needs to do the work, every single person needs to do this kind of thing. And because I had autoimmune, I know what it does to the body as well as the mind, and what it does for your life. It's also what it's doing on a physical element. So understanding that, even though you might not feel it because you don't have autoimmune like me, or had autoimmune like me, but having that kind of feeling is a reminder of, actually, for my physical health, this is necessary as well. And I think through anything, you mentioned it, Viraj, we have to go through uncomfortable moments to get the best moments out of life. And I think sometimes reflecting back on uncomfortable things that have happened in life for me have been huge. Yeah, everything happens for a reason. And I think when you get into that point to just trust in the universe and what it is huge. But realizing any of those things, again, that what is it trying to teach me happened for a reason, is very powerful in itself as well.
And that's where experience becomes wisdom. Like, very similarly, a few years ago now, I had a brush with Guillain-Barré syndrome, and again, right, it was like my body was giving me signals, because my mind was just powering through and trying to pay bills and do all that stuff. So just by going through that experience, like, there are times where I realized that through that experience, I'm like, I may be heading down a similar path if I doing the things that I'm doing. So now I'm really grateful for it, because it's like, I can see what will happen if I choose to carry on down this road. And it's like, okay, let me take a step back here, let me breathe, let me get some sleep. Like, just the value of looking at each experience and not just compartmentalizing it, putting it in a box and putting it in the dark room in the corner. Sometimes just having a look to see what's there and saying, actually, there's an element of this that can be quite useful. The rest I can now discard and have that as what's the word I'm looking for? Like a beacon, or like a reference point to always look at and say, I can build off it in this way, but then I know that through the experience, if I carry on, this is the path I'm always going to head down as well. So it becomes valuable.
I love that though as well, because I think, there are always, and I read this fascinating book that was talking about this, and it's saying, in our life, there is always signs to make us change, that they're always there, but whether we take them and grab them, I must have had tons of signs in my 20s that I didn't see. And I think sometimes when you have these emotions, or they're there in the forefront, they're screaming at you, because it's saying you need to do some healing in terms of this. It's there for a reason, to say, right, we need to do some healing. And healing is not a bad word, it's a good word. So the reason they're there is for a reason. It's screaming at you to say, do something about this. And it's where we can jump on it and say, let me take this actually for what it is and bring out a positive to this rather than eating on that vicious cycle.
Totally. Like, and as you said, I reckon there's so many signs I just ignored. Like even my doctor, calm down a little bit. Like, you're working. I said, no, I'm good. I can handle this. And it wasn't like, it's funny now, but I remember getting like a lumbar puncture, and like it's the most uncomfortable thing ever. And I'm like, at that moment, I was like, this can't happen again. Like, I've got to take control of this situation as well. But again, I think signs are that much louder.
I think taking control actually is sort of digging a bit deeper on that, is embracing whatever you're going through, right? So, for example, I'm going through a journey of type 2 diabetes and hypertension, but I've refused the narrative that I am type 2 diabetic, and it's my personal choice because I'm going through a journey, and I'm going through a journey of reversal. So I'm just putting that out there, to the universe. So I think the narrative and embracing what you're going through, and I think what Laura touched on earlier on, is everything happens for a reason, but it's understanding how that reason can serve you. And it may not be apparent in the moment, but it definitely is apparent at some point, right? Once the reality of whatever it is that hits you in that moment. Because finding out you've got something or something's happened to you or whatever, the human psyche goes through that natural why me syndrome, right? But the second you snap out of it and you embrace it and you find out that actually there's a million people out there that are going through this, or there may not be. You may be a 1 in 1,000 million percent, but irrespective, right? It's somebody's going through something every second of the day. So you're another soul that's going through another part of that journey, and you have a choice. You embrace it or you don't embrace it, right? That's a powerful thing, I think, in its own right.
And I think that's the thing to recognize, is that those signs, those symptoms, they're happening for you. They're radars, they're alerts that are going off. It's like a notification you get on your phone, like, you need to check this out. If you keep swiping it and ignoring it, it's just going to snowball into something else.
Fascinating thing about the phone, sorry to interrupt, but fascinating thing about the phone. So when I first was learning my meditation and all of that, and we talked about the SNS system, right? Even when our phone beeps for a notification, that sets off our SNS system, because you might interlink it to a bad conversation you've had with somebody, an argument you've had somewhere or something like that. Likewise, a fascinating thing this happens with is food and things like that. So if you get a meal, this is an allergen test I kind of did, a meal and a bad situation has happened with that food, you've had an argument over that food, you can actually even get an allergen to it. That's going a bit deeper and a bit out there to something different. But the phone thing was amazing to me, that when it beeps, because it's a shock, right? It's a noise and it's a, oh, what's that? And then there's a bit of a fear of, oh, is it, who's the message from, or what is it? Subconsciously happening, we don't realize. Fascinating stuff, that.
Do you know the best thing I ever did in my life, Laura, when I used to get all these notifications, is switch off that endorphin hit and switch off all of my notifications on WhatsApp and all social media. And I tell you, the amount of time I got back in my life is ridiculous.
I bet. So you don't hear it when it goes, no,
Nope. So I have to force myself to go in if I want to. So I'm creating another filter, another barrier, because as we've all gone through, we probably spent hours and hours, right, mining through clickbait, social media, right? It's just ridiculous. My mind boggles how much time I wasted.
Which is, again, just adds on to the SNS. You go on Twitter, you see a conversation. It's about the vaccine, it's about this, it's about that, and all of a sudden, like, I just want to check this football score.
Yeah, exactly.
Laura, let's go a bit deeper. So let's do this. Do you want to share a bit more about and feel free whatever you want to share, and I know you will share whatever you share anyway, about how, for people who might be going through something that you went through, can you just describe, for anybody who's joined in late, what exactly did you go through? How do you overcome it, and what are some of the symptoms and the root causes, and what are some of the tools and techniques? And I know diet's a big one for you, talking to you. Like, just take us through that journey, just in each milestone, if that's okay.
Absolutely. So I was 29. I was working in the tech industry, senior management, sales manager. I actually loved my job. I did love my job. And then I suddenly got struck down with toxic shock syndrome. So very open, very frank, I had a retained tampon. But I don't think that's what caused my illness. I think when I look back and say I was healthy majority of my life, I had little skin conditions, I had UTIs, water infections, all these different things throughout my life. that actually, now I look back, happened at emotional times in my life, by the way, interlinked to the physical symptoms. But I think the retained tampon just hit me over the edge. Another fascinating thing that happened to me in the December, I got unwell, and in the August, in the March, I lost my first grandparent, and in the second, I lost my second grandparent in the August. So death was a big thing for me, I'll be honest. Grief and how I feel about all of that was massive. I didn't even realize it. So I think all of that attributing to what was going on in my body. When I got this tampon, I just couldn't fight off the infection and what it released in the body, which was a host of numerous different infections, bacterial vaginosis, UTI. Got put on a host of medication, told water infection after water infection, to the point then when they said there was nothing wrong with me, there was no infection. I was going to the bathroom 70 times a day. I was in so much pain, I can't explain the pain, like screaming in pain, having to sleep with my legs open in pain. Again, I'm very honest about it. All of that had an effect on me, not knowing what was wrong with my body from an emotional state as well. Worried about work, not being able to go to work, to having to go to work, to put on a face and just being in this excruciating pain. They sent me to get hypnotized. They told me it was all in my head. Interestingly, when I looked further into this, when we talk about emotions, the bladder and gut, so a lot of people have gut conditions, they might have, also mine was bladder, but people might have Crohn's, they might have ulcerative colitis, all these different areas, is one of the first places that emotions go to. And when you look at kind of the healing and where they stay trapped in the body, if you think somebody flies and they feel nervous, I need the bathroom, don't really need the bathroom, but it's an emotion. So that to me was fascinating when I started to look at that. So yeah, I went through this awful period, eventually got diagnosed because I didn't give up, because the doctors, hospitals were signing me off. I'm from York, but I was over in Birmingham. Somebody needs to tell me what's wrong with me. Spent a whole ton of money on private healthcare. To the point I hit a very, very low note, and very honest and frank, I wrote a suicide note because I thought I cannot live in this pain. And I had never been that type of person. I don't think I would have ever done it. In fact, I know I wouldn't have done it, but I cannot literally live in this pain. I'd been 2 years at this point of this horrificness that was my life, that was it. And it was the next morning I woke up and thought, no, I am going to heal. So led me to a natural healing journey, which covered many different areas, as you touched on there. Diet was one thing. So over the last 5 years, I've only eaten a diet of fruits, vegetables, and nuts, which always, so people will say to me, but you eat pizza, right? No, when I say just fruits, vegetables, and nuts, which does include...
Viraj will be smiling because he's vegan.
Excellent. There you go. So you see, yeah, but just fruits, vegetables, and nuts, which includes potatoes. Followed a wonderful guy, medical medium, in some different areas. Herbs, supplements, holistic dentistry was a big part of mine, getting rid of mercury from the mouth. Huge. And also how that connects to emotions in the mind as well. Vitamin B and all those different areas.
Goes straight to your brain as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, and when you look, each tooth is related to an organ in the body as well. And it's also, when you go even deeper, and I'm just kind of going into this a bit more, a tooth can relate to a certain emotion. That's kind of real next level stuff that I'm only just scratching the surface of. But yeah, Alzheimer's, they say, is a big thing related to mercury in the mouth. So that was that. And I kind of did this, got 40-50% better, and was like, what is this next level? Why can't I just, I'm eating this fabulous diet, all of this? And that's when the emotional healing came into play. I'd heard about emotional healing, had that thought that many of us have, well, I've had a good life. Other people have had it way worse than me. That vicious thought that we feed ourselves, that is habitual. So I didn't really understand it. I've had a good job. It's only since I got ill that really I had any issues, as I called it. And it's not issues. It's just then I started to realize as I went into it that emotional healing, we all go through so much in our lifetimes, I think personally and professionally, and we've all built subconscious behaviors as part of this. We all have trapped emotions, negative thought patterns that are just feeding on loop because we never have addressed them, because society as it used to be was very much, you just get on with things, you just get on, you don't tell people it's a weakness, all of this ridiculousness that it is not. Rather than realizing that talking, that being open, and then getting in touch with myself and finding emotions that were all over the place I didn't even realize were there, really led me on this self-discovery journey that not only changed my health, changed my whole life, genuinely, personally, professionally. Things just started happening for me when I sort of did this work as well. I have very much calmness, relaxation in my life. To give you an example, in terms of professional world, I think is a big thing we don't touch a lot, actually. And I think professional is as important as personal, and the two interlink for me. If we think of things like imposter syndrome, which everybody has felt at some point, that's because of something that's happened in personal life or professional life, is a negative emotion feeding the body, feeding the SNS. Fear, elements of fear at work, elements of not being fully authentic at work, because we can't be our true self. There's elements we've got to tone down, but we tone it down so much. I think we all live in that, actually, how can I be more authentic in work? And I thought I was very authentic, but not as much as I even realized, because of certain things that happen in a workplace, in a meeting that you carry. When we talk about letting go, somebody might cut you off in a meeting, or they might make a comment that you don't like. There's office politics. I went through something in the workplace where somebody had made a comment about me. They'd started a rumor I was having an affair. Again, I'm very open and frank, an affair with one of the finance directors, which to me was, because I'm in senior management and I'm a female, I must have been having an affair. And I went on this whole SNS thing to myself. But actually, I did my own work to overcome that. And what was that person going through? Those emotions had an effect on me, not just professionally, but also personally. And when I started to do these deep diving is when I realized, actually, I can choose how I react to a situation and these circumstances that happen in life day in, day out. And then I got even deeper into how I guess that's a good line, actually, is react versus response. And how often am I my authentic self? How often am I reacting because of a thought of what other people think, or something in the way I think I should react? And it's not my true self, in anger, in resentment, in frustration, whatever it might be. But actually, a response, getting in touch, silencing that overactive mind, a response is true me. And that's why I'm very much on authenticity, is also a fascinating topic. And when I did this, I am now pleased to say I'm fully healed. I now help others heal, and I'm constantly on my own journey of discovery, which I think is fascinating, so enjoyable, and my life has just changed completely for it.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Right.
Yeah, that was really, I think that was really insightful. I know we've had a proper conversation, haven't we, before this, when we connected before, but I think for the viewers, it's really, really important. And I think you touched on quite a lot there, but one of the other co-founders and a really good friend of ours actually suffers from Crohn's, so Sagar, who's part of Mindful Medicine. So I know he'll be listening in, some of our audience. Hashtag replay when you listen to this, and put your comments on there. And if you've got any questions for Laura, for myself, for Raj, for anybody, definitely put your questions on there. I think the interesting thing, slightly, I guess I'm a little bit sharing. You mentioned very subtly that we can't be ourselves at work. I'm the opposite. So what you see of me at my LinkedIn profile, on my Facebook profile, and I put it out there to the universe and challenge anyone, me at home, that's the reason why I put my video on my LinkedIn. I had fear of it potentially damaging my career previously, but then when I went through my own inner healing work, actually the right roles, the right businesses will automatically align. So I don't wear that mask, actually, but I know it's not for everyone's cup of tea.
No, but what I love with that is you did, right? Because you just said that I did until I did my own inner healing and my own journey. And that's where I think we don't realize.
It took a realization of a process of, and it was a choice, and it was a personal choice. And I had lots of comments from people thinking, are you mad? Are you crazy? I'm like, well, I've always been crazy in life, so that's a good thing, right? But I'm kind of playing with it, with the fun of it. But it was coming from a place of love that they shared it. But they were coming from a fixed mindset, and I just don't do fixed mindset anymore. So it's just a personal choice. I think it's just one of those interesting things that sometimes I say that, and not just for my own benefit, but one of the guys touched on limiting beliefs being a part of why he doesn't do what he does as well. So sometimes when you put that limiting belief, it can also be a harmful thing to do as well.
And that's where I say the authenticity piece comes in, because until you do the journey, and I would have said 10 years ago I was really authentic at work. Now I am. Now I've done a journey, and I thought I was, and I think this is it. We don't even realize. So often when I'll say authentic, everybody's like, well, I am, but we don't realize these fears or these different subconscious elements we're living in. So 10 years ago, would I have said, I didn't initially tell people I had a bladder condition because I was embarrassed it was the bladder. One of my first releases and my first healing started when I put it on Facebook that I had a bladder condition, which was for the reason for me to just put it out there that it was a release of bladder. And what I thought people would react with, they didn't. It hit this huge thing of many people saying, I've got this condition, I've got this, can you help me with this? What can we do? But in itself, it was just a release to say, this is what it is. And that limiting belief as well and fear, I think, is huge. So yeah, I think people are authentic. It's not that we're consciously not. And I think you go through a journey, then you realize, now I'm really authentic.
Yeah, there's different depths, isn't there, of authenticity. I think that's what we're getting at. There's different depths of authenticity.
And
it's something you've got to experience.
I was just going to say that release, as you put it, that actually opens up for contribution, because you're right, to a certain extent, we may not feel certain people may help us, but other people will show up. You know, we call it the law of attraction in that sense. It's like, it's always for us, first and foremost, to let go of something and give up the power that it may hold over us, or the way we create it to hold over us, and allow others to become, again, it goes back to Sangha. By just that post, I'm sure people connected with you and contributed towards your journey until the next step happened as well. So I think the recurring theme that we have on this theme is always about, you've just got to let something go as a release, because actually it opens up for you to receive something else instead.
Absolutely.
That we're holding.
And it's a choice, right? And I think we've kind of touched about it a bit. I think that was the first thing for me when I realized, actually, this is a choice. We fundamentally have a choice in how we react to something. And it's just getting in touch with yourself to see that is a choice and doing the right work aligned, or little tips and techniques that can help with that. But fundamentally, it is our choice to let go of something. We always have that choice.
I think what's really interesting, Raj, is that a lot of this conversation is around letting go of something that no longer serves us, and majority of it is leaning towards something that may in the moment, and may still do have a negative connotation. But I read this quote, I can't remember where, I can't think of whether it's in a book or something, but I read this quote on a slightly deeper level, and it's on the other side of the spectrum. So it's when things are going good. So I'll just share it. So it says, if you want to experience something great, you need to destroy what's good. And I didn't get it at first. And I was like, I'd say it to myself again and again and again. It's like, what do you mean? Why would I do that? So I'm experiencing something good, but if I want to experience something great, I've got to destroy what is good to experience what is great. So I reflected on it, and I was kind of meditating on it. And the distinction that I can draw from it, my personal distinction, is that, you know, when people say, I'm happy, are you happy? I'm happy. And we've talked about it quite deeply, haven't we, Viraj, in one of the other talks? I can't remember what the topic of the conversation was, but the difference between happiness being exterior emotion and joy being a inner emotion. So it's like the good in that statement, in that quote, is the happiness. It's perceived happiness. It could be temporary. But if I want to experience immense joy, I have to destroy what's. So the word destroy took me a while to get over, because the word destroy has a negative connotation. But then I meditated even deeper, and like you know, I'm into energy work as well. And energy never dies; it transforms, transcends, and transfers. So I thought, oh, okay, that destroy is a really cool word. So then it just hit me. I just thought I'd share that with you guys. But yeah, it's really powerful thought.
I like that. I kind of take it as a ever changing. So ever changing and ever learning as well, in that sense. So I didn't kind of look at the destroy the good, but actually developing. I'm going to not getting habitual and getting comfortable in that sense. But then you can do twofold, because you can say you should be comfortable and be present and be happy, but it's finding the balance between the two, I think. The other thing I was just thinking before we kind of went into that as well was, we've talked a lot about letting go, and we've talked a lot about other people. I think it's forgiveness of self, and actually letting go of your own things, mistakes you have made in life are really important. And I think somebody mentioned it in your group when you spoke about initially. Yeah, so letting go of that, where we all make mistakes, and we learn from mistakes. You know, I've done things in life that were not great, but I've learned from it, and learning to let go is a big thing. And that was another thing that came up when I was healing. I think a lie came up that I had told at 17. It was only a little lie, but even that kind of stuff was coming up to me. and learning to let go of that. I couldn't change, but I can be better in changing in this shape. So I think forgiveness of self is another thing. Sorry, I wasn't changing the subject there, but I just wanted to mention that.
No, I think it's really powerful, and you just reminded me that actually you can't begin to go outside, right, unless you go inside, and literally what we mean by that is have that internal conversation with yourself and forgive yourself. And one of the guys, I think 2 or 3 of the guys were right, mentioned the fact that they found it hard to let go of something that they did, whether I think one reference was from a friendship, was it a boyfriend girlfriend friendship?
Yeah, it was something in school. There was an argument with a friend over summer.
That's right, yeah.
The friend tried to make amends, but they were like, no, I'm not interested. But then in looking back, they said I was just being an arse about it. But
yeah,
yeah.
So I think it's important to let go. Start with yourself. I think that's really fundamental and really key. But that's sometimes the hardest thing, isn't it, Laura, to do, like forgiving yourself for things that you've done, because it could be attached to a feeling and an emotion that you've caused others that are in your spectrum of care, right? So whether it's romantic, whether it's a loving relationship, whether it's parental, sibling, so that's probably the most challenging but liberating thing to do.
Absolutely, but I think you can do things. I recently, so when I looked at this, I know a past relationship where I wasn't very great to the person, or no, I wasn't horrible, but I wasn't particularly, and I didn't even realize at the time because I was in my own toxic subconscious behavior from past relationships. So I recently reached out to the person about 1.5 years ago and just apologized. Now, actually, he took that really well and we had a good chat, but I just wanted to apologize. You can have people who won't maybe accept your apology, but that's all you can do is go and apologize. So that was quite liberating to me to go and say, I actually am sorry for what I did here, because I recognize this. And as I say, he was quite receptive. You might not get people who are, but that's the best I could do in that situation. And the best you can do sometimes is you might not have that person in your life, but all you can do is change. And that person then has taught you a very valuable lesson. So I think, I think it's hard, and you have to accept sometimes. But equally, on the other side, I've been in the same situation where the gentleman I mentioned has tried to reach out to me for my own healing. I don't really want to be in each other's lives, I forgive him, and I was very polite, and we've kind of spoken. But sometimes you do have to let go of other people. So I've been on both sides of that. And I think just accepting why you want them to be on your life, because if it's fundamentally not right for them, then you truly care about that person and you say, okay, I'll leave you be, but I've apologized and I've done my part, because that can be a selfish reason why you still want them in your life as well.
Yeah, you remind me of a really important technique that we somebody was asking about what it is in our private Zoom, and it's to do with cord cutting, and I'm sure you know about it. So it's for the audience that's listening, it's when you, like what Laura just said, so it's like the other person's trying to apologize to you, but you've made a conscious and subconscious choice at a deeper level to know that person's energy no longer serves you, and you no longer serve that person. Your paths no longer intertwined. You can positively send a loving, forgiving message out to the universe by doing cord cutting, etc. So I've done that 3 times now with 3 different people, and in a really positive way, and they're no longer in my life in a positive way. So I know what you mean.
And I think that was so huge for me, was certain people. Now they might come back into your life. I always looked at a method of just right now. This is just for right now. Because they're on their own journey, and I hope he goes on his own self-discovery. I've helped as much as I can in that, but that's just for right now. In 10 years, you may change. In 6 years, you might go through your own journey, and our energies might realign. But for right now, that's not for me.
And I love that, because that's a really humble thing for you to acknowledge, because you're absolutely right. It's not right now, but we all change. We all were different people yesterday. So those 3 people that I mentioned, if their energies are aligned and my energies are aligned, then we'll embrace that journey right together. But in the moment, I needed to do that, and I think I can relate 100% what you just described as well. That's a nice way of putting it. Not in this moment.
Not right now.
So, guys, as we've come up to the hour mark, what would you say are like the key takeaways on this subject for anyone?
An hour already? Oh my God! I thought it was just 20 minutes in.
I know we could go for hours.
You know, right? So yeah, what would be like in a sentence on this theme, something that you'd like to share with everyone that's watching on how they can find either awareness, acceptance, forgive, or along whatever journey they are of letting go? Like, what would be your key nugget of information?
You want to
Shall
go
I
first?
go first? So I would say, I'm not even going to use the word letting go. I'm going to use be kind to yourself, forgive yourself, forgive others, recognize the SNS and the parasympathetic system, and that everything is taught behavior. And for me, the biggest what is this trying to teach me? How can I learn, grow, and evolve? That would just be my key.
Awesome. Manoj?
Brilliant. I think for me, I'll start at the foundational level. I think understand and embrace the true essence of what it feels to be grateful in life and meditate on that. And I think everything stems from that.
I think mine is just comes down to choice. We always have a choice, so let's see what options we can create for ourselves and recognize what is it that we have right now. So the analogy that I have is you're in a room that's full of clutter. Where do you want to create space? Start with that and then choose what you want to keep. That's going to be a function, and anything else that isn't. Consider why it's there in the first place and what could you put there instead.
Love that.
Definitely, that's a good one. That's a good one. Brilliant. Were there any questions or comments, George, that we didn't answer or get through?
No. I think we pretty much covered everything there. There's a great comment here, which I'm just trying to scroll up and find from Soldier, saying that someone like Viktor Frankl said, suffering doesn't have to be negative. It can have a deep meaning for each of us. So yeah, it's just the inquiry.
Love that. Thank you for your contribution, and Sergio, and thank you for everybody who's listening with their presence in silence. It's been felt, and listening with their presence in comments, and anybody who will comment and no doubt share and comment on this in the future. So thank you so much, and special thank you to our guest Laura. I'm sure we'll be doing a few other lives. I can sense that already. So
many topics. So thank you, and thank you for having me. I think it's wonderful what you do, and I've felt the presence of everybody who's joined us today as well.
Awesome, brilliant. Viraj, over to you to wrap up.
Yeah, no, just to wrap up, we're going to announce some new topics soon that we're going to cover in terms of our meetings and live. So there's some few things that we're excited about, potentially our first meetup coming up soon as well. So all exciting things. We just can't wait to pull the trigger on them.
Definitely. So if you do want to have a topic that you want us to absolutely smash the taboo out of and discuss in a deeper way for our audience of men or for our sister groups, so a massive shout out to Reroute and Mental Wealth, are both sister groups for females. Let us know in the comments. Always message us. If you want to private message us like a lot of you guys do, please continue to private message us and let us know what topics you want us to discuss, because it's not our space, it's your space. So just let us know. And on that note, I think, I'm not sure what you guys, I keep looking left because it's raining, but I'm going to go out for a walk. I'm going to go out for a walk anyway.
Actually, can I just on that comment, just before we do go, because water is amazing as well in terms of letting go. So one of the biggest things that for me around letting go is when you have a shower, you can dip, some people do their cold showers or they do hot showers. Actually, when you look at the water, because water is so healing, when it's running and watching it go down the plug hole and actually realizing that's any negativity washing away from me, washing away and going away, very simplistic. One of the most healing things you can do. So when you're having that shower, imagining the water rinsing off all this negative thought, watching it go down the plug hole and releasing what you need to from yourself.
There you go. On that cleansing, beautiful question, Laura. Yeah, you've redefined showers all over the world, Laura, for anybody who's
That's it. I'm going to go have one myself.
Anyone having a bath right now is feeling really guilty. They're just sitting in it.
Okay. Listen, thank you so much again. And thank you so much for everybody who's watching. Thank you for all of your beautiful support. We wouldn't be here without you. And have an amazing, blessed weekend, whatever you get whatever you get up to, whatever you choose or not choose to let go of. I think stay safe. And then be, I think this is a line from Laura that I resonate with. It's be your authentic self. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.